That was so mean.
Seriously.
So, this is something I wouldn't normally do. If you've seen this channel before, you'd likely know me for my low quality editing skills, to say the least. When I was a kid, I loved watching Total Drama. Something about the survival aspect of the show, where I'm hoping, praying that my favorite characters were safe for another episode, was just so endearing. And one of my favorite aspects of the show is the wide range of colourful characters. So that got me thinking, why don't I tier rank them? You guys have seen my videos before, however, you guys don't know who my favorite characters are. Okay, let me rephrase that. You guys don't know who most of my favorite characters are. So why not find out now? And without further ado, let's get started. So here are the different tiers. First up, Mr. Coconut tier, because Mr. Coconut is the GOAT. Next up, Team Amazon, who will be Team A, because they're a really good team. Same with Team Chris, but less good. Next is the Marshmallow of Safety. Not the best, but they're still pretty good. The tier is for characters who are And then we start to get to the bad characters with the tier nuh-uh. And then we get really bad with Team Victory. Absolute flops. Next up, Team X, because they probably murdered Mr. Coconut. That's how bad they are. Then the fuck you tier, because why do you exist? Yeah, why do you exist? These are all depending characters who we'll be ranking today. With all that said and done, let's get started. So first up, we have Ezekiel, and I'm going to be completely honest here. I'm not really the biggest fan of Ezekiel, and it's not even Ezekiel's fault either. Like, I blame it more on the writers than Ezekiel himself. In Ireland, he got out first. Fair enough, someone had to be first, and he was misogynistic, so it was deserved. But then we get to World Tour, and they just dehumanized him. Like, they turn him into this freak zombie, no one liked him. Like, come on, Ezekiel deserves so much better than this. And wanna know what the worst part is? Ezekiel in World Tour is, unironically, his more entertaining appearance. Ezekiel had so much potential, but the writers just straight up ruined him, and I feel so bad for him. I'm gonna have to put him in the D category. I feel so bad for him, but at the same time, the writers kind of had it coming. Next up we have Noah, and he really did not impress me in Ireland. At most he had the funny one-liner here and there, but for the most part he was just lazy and really boring. Things, however, really pick up from World Tour. He's a one-liner machine, making funny joke after funny joke after funny joke. Unfortunately for Noah, however, his time was cut short, which was honestly a shame because I felt like he could have had a lot more to offer, as I feel like he could have been at least a schemer like his bio description, and it's kind of a shame that his role wasn't very big in World Tour. Thankfully, however, that issue was solved in the Redonkulous race. Not only was he still just as funny, but he was also plot relevant, as now he has a love interest, and that love interest is also just as snarky and just as funny as Noah. And honestly, they're just a really cute couple and one of the most popular Total Drama ships. I'm honestly really glad that Noah got this type of development. And it's no surprise to see him as one of the most popular Total Drama characters of all time. So, good on you, Noah. Easy A tier. Similarly, let's talk about Justin. In Ireland, Justin was honestly really hyped up because he was this really handsome guy, because he had pupils, but then they just cut him off for an honestly bullshit scenario. Thankfully, in action, he had a really big glow up. Not as big as Noah's, but it was honestly still very noticeable. And I honestly loved his role as the villain, and I was really, really upset when they took that away from him. However, that really didn't hurt his character because he was still really funny and one of the best parts of action. Whilst I will admit he was definitely underused, from what we saw of him, he was really, really good. And I will admit, I really wish he was in the top 3 of action. Justin is a really underappreciated character, and I do wish we get to see more of him in the foreseeable future. I'm going to put Justin in the A rank, next to Noah, the anti-him. Next up, Katie. What can I say about Katie? She only had 1 season and she was really annoying. I guess she could have had a bit more potential if she was without Sadie and a bit more independent. Had like 1 more season. But honestly, from what we saw of Katie, she was so annoying. But between her and Sadie, I definitely do prefer Katie just because of the dodgeball competition to show that she is actually competent at challenges. I'm giving Katie the X tier, and spoiler alert, this is the worst rank out of every character from Gen 1. Sorry, Katie. Next up, we have Tyler, and I can't believe I'm saying this, but I honestly have a really soft spot for Tyler. I don't know, I think it's because he was relevant in my 2 biggest Total Drama Passion projects, the All Stars My Way and the YouTube Poop. Having said that though, I honestly do feel bad for him about how people just forget him all the time. Not only Lindsay, but he's also in canon the least popular Total Drama character, which is honestly really sad to see because Tyler is just such a funny character and he's so good. I love Tyler so much. And if my channel were ever to have a Total Drama mascot, I think it would have to be Tyler, just because of his relevancy here. If only your own girlfriend noticed you this much, Tyler. I'm not going to go into it, but I'm going to be completely honest. I hate Lindsay X Tyler so much. Tyler isn't really well written, however, between A tier and S tier, you know what? Put him in Mr. Coconut. Put him in Mr. Coconut. Okay, let me just get this straight out of the way. Cody is an S tier character, my favorite character. However, if you ask a Cody fan why their favorite character is Cody, they would just be like, oh, he's cute. Oh, he's an underdog. But I feel like Cody just offers a lot more. First off, I want to talk about Island. I hated Cody so much in Island. He was probably the worst character that season, just because of how much of a stalker he was to Gwen, and the fact he got rewarded for it as well. Like, he sniffed Gwen's hair, but for some reason she considers him one of the few normal people, which doesn't make any sense. However, World Tour was probably where he peaked, because it was just like really good karma for Cody. Like, okay, now he's the one who has to deal with the stalker. Now he's the one who has to deal with trouble. And something that I find really interesting is that in Island, he talks about how, oh, he's going to be this big superstar one day, everyone's going to know who he is. But then we get to World Tour, and he sort of loses all that confidence. And even in World Tour, where he doesn't actually win the season, showing a story of a failed underdog, it's really accurate, and I kind of wish it got shown more in media. Like just an underdog failing, because believe it or not, it does happen. They're not always what's hyped up to be. And I'm just going to be completely honest. Cody works best as a support character, because if he did win World Tour, I would not love him this much. In fact, would I even love him at all? I don't know. Cody is the best character in Total Drama, and I'm tired of pretending he's not. Easy S tier. Easy S tier. And we're not going to get any better from here. Speaking of, next up we have Beth, and I honestly don't understand the hate that goes on around her. Like, okay, sure, she is a bit boring, and I don't think she deserved to win action. But at the same time, you have to admit, she did kick a lot of butt, and definitely played a very strong game. People often say, oh, she's annoying, oh, she's a pick-me girl. But when you really look into her character, it's honestly really interesting to see her stand up to people like Heather and play a really good social game after learning from her mistakes. And she's honestly really hated. Don't get me wrong, she's not the best character, as she does have a few flaws. Sometimes she is a boring support character. But at the same time, don't put that against her, please. She's not a bad character. She's really not. But at the same time, her win could have been handled a lot better. I think Beth deserves a C rank. And now we get to Sadie. I don't think I need to explain myself too much here. Take everything I said about Katie, except take away the decent dodgeball skills. Also, Sadie's worse as well because she lasted longer and she had more time to be a waste of time. So, X tier. She could be a part of the murder club with Katie. Now we get to Courtney. Probably my least favourite character before now. However, the more I think about it, is Courtney really deserving of the worst slot? Like, okay, she is not well written at all. If you've seen season 2, 3, and 5, yeah, you pretty much already know. She's a whiner, complainer, very annoying, and she was just so unrootable. A lot of people say she deserved to win All-Stars, but come on, she was just complaining throughout the entire season. It was not fun to watch. Oh yeah, my friendship with Gwen is over. Oh this, oh that. It's just not fun to watch. However, at the same time, she's a really strong player and she's really fun to watch. And I can't really take that away from her. That's the thing. I cannot take that away from her. I feel like Island was her best season, as not only was she a strong competitor who knew how to play the game, but she also actually had friendships as well. People like Duncan and Bridgette. It was just so fun to watch. It's kind of a shame that they ruined her afterwards as well, especially with the whole kiss, but we will get to that later. Whilst Courtney is a really bad character, don't get me wrong, it feels kind of cheap to put her so low next to Katie and Sadie, because we can't really discredit her good work ethic. As for the tier, Courtney is really a mixed bag. C, D, or E? Ultimately, I think I have to choose C tier here, just because of her influence on the show. Next up, the absolute giga chad that's Harold. Harold actually used to be my favourite Total Drama character. I don't know, I think it was just his wicked mad skills that would either A, help his team throughout the challenges, or B, just be really cool. I especially loved his run in Total Drama Action as well, and I definitely feel like he deserves to be a finalist that season, just because of how amazing he played that game, and he was pretty much written to be the main character. Having said that though, there were moments where they did actually flanderize Harold's character, especially in Total Drama World Tour, where they basically just turned him into one giant nerd. And it wasn't like he was the nicest person either. He felt really unrootable sometimes, especially in Ireland when he just left his underwear everywhere and called people like DJ a Dorcahontas. However, Harold is still a really strong player, and he is definitely deserving of the S ranking. Way to go, H-Bomb. Now let's talk about Eva, and I'm going to be completely honest when I say this. Eva was so robbed. She only had one season, which was Island, and okay, she was funny in that season. She had her memorable moments, and I did like her time on the show. However, she didn't really have a lot of time on the show. She only lasted a few episodes, came back and got out in that same episode. Surely another season can help her develop, right? No. No other season. She did not appear in any other season. But I will give her this. She had a lot of memorable seasons in the aftermath. Not only in action, but World Tour as well. And it was honestly such a shame that she didn't get to compete in at least one more season, where she could have been a strong player. I'm going to leave Eva in C tier, and that's only because she didn't get the chance to prove herself competing, which is honestly such a shame because she would have been so good. Next up, Trent. And yeah, I really don't have much positive things to say. In Ireland, he was really boring. I think his only notable aspect was that he was a guy with a guitar, and that's it. Okay, Gwen's boyfriend as well, but like, he was like the most normal guy, and even then, he was still really boring. But then things honestly start to get worse in action, but I don't think I need to tell you about that. He's pretty much regarded as one of the worst characters that season, just because of how annoying he was. Whether it would be his relationship with Gwen, whether it would be his addiction to the number 9, he really was not likable, which was honestly such a shame, because he had a lot of potential after Island to be a really good player, but they did sort of throw that away just for the stupid love triangle. I feel bad for this ranking as I honestly believe that Trent deserved better, but I'm gonna have to leave him at the not R tier. From one boring character to another, we get to Bridgette, and just like Trent, I really have nothing good to say here. Okay, she had a pretty good run in Ireland, she had some good friendships, I won't discredit her for that. However, at the same time, she was boring, and you could tell that she was getting shafted for other characters. In action, she was a bit worse, but at the same time, she did act as the moral compass, which, yeah, I guess it does work, but at the same time, they could have done a lot more with her character. However, even then, that gets completely disregarded with World Tour, as her role in action basically gets thrown away here after the kiss. Poor Bridgette. I'm sure the poll loves you at least. Bridgette is a character who I do feel like has a lot of potential. However, the writers didn't realize this, so she did unfortunately have to get shafted and derailed a little bit. Sorry, Bridgette, but you're gonna have to be in the D tier. Also, I feel like I'm being a bit too nice with Courtney's ranking, so I do need to switch up the entirety of D tier right now. Yeah, I think this sounds right. Now we move on to Lindsay, and first things first, I hate Lindsay x Tyler so much. Oh yeah, they're such a cute couple. Oh my god, yes, they're the best ship of all time. Lindsay doesn't even remember his name. I feel so bad for Tyler because Lindsay's just forgetting about him, flirting with other guys. Oh, who's that guy again? Oh, I don't know who he is. How do people say this is a good ship? It's not. Throwing all that aside, I love Lindsay so much. Like, I don't know, she's just a funny little goofball who just did funny shenanigans because she was that dumb blonde. I love her naivety when she's paired up with Heather, and that one time when she did stand up for herself was really strong. Same in action as well. Remember how I said that Harold would have been a good finalist? You know who else should have joined him? Lindsay. Lindsay was also the main character that season and also played a really strong game. She started to take up leadership and actually learn from her mistakes after her experience with Heather. While touring All-Stars, whilst yes, she did do pretty bad, I don't think that should take away from how good of a character she is. But yeah, I just love Lindsay so much. She is just so silly and just such an amazing and funny character. As for the tier, S tier, why not? Let's put her in the Mr. Coconut tier. We now move on to DJ, and compared to other people, I'm not the biggest fan of DJ. Don't get me wrong, he's such a strong player and he's also a sweetheart. However, at the same time, the writers did him really dirty. In Ireland, he was a really great player. He was one of the nicest players, yet he was also really strong. He was a gentle giant. And I prefer DJ in action more because of his alliance with Chef, which had a lot of layering to his character. And the conclusion to the arc was so good because it stayed true to DJ's character. So writers of Fresh TV, why, oh why did you give him the Animal Curse in World Tour? You turned him from a gentle giant who could still pull things off on his own to one of the biggest scaredy cats and crybabies in the entire show. It's honestly such a shame. I loved DJ so much. However, the treatment towards him was really bad, and he is a really boring character. They did DJ so dirty, and honestly, DJ deserved a lot better. Just like the other players in the show, DJ had a lot of potential to be a really, really good character, even better than he already was. However, the writers don't know this, and so they did unfortunately have to write DJ off. DJ's gonna go on C tier. He's more relevant than Beth, and quite frankly played a stronger game throughout the different seasons. However, Eva's still funnier. Next up is Izzy, and what's not to love about Izzy? She's one of the funniest characters in the show. Izzy's a character who I have trouble explaining because she doesn't really have any prominent story arcs, and she doesn't go through much development, but come on, she's really funny. She's probably one of the most out-of-pocket and just wildest characters, and yeah, she's just so good. She was equally good in every season, Island, Action, and World Tour, just because of how funny she was in all of them. Not only that, but I did also love her relationship with Owen. The only issue I have with Izzy is that she doesn't really have a lot to do outside of her crazy shenanigans. We barely see her interact with any characters, which is honestly kind of a shame because I would have loved to see more Team E-Scope. They were so iconic. Although, I do think it would be very interesting to see Izzy as a main protagonist at some point, and not just as a minor character who gets out halfway through the game. Another easy A tier, next to Justin. Speaking of Justin, did you know that Izzy and Justin dated? Now we move on to Geoff, and this may sound really weird to say, but I actually think that Geoff is one of the most underappreciated characters. In Island, he was this chill dude, you know? Like, he was a surfer guy. Basically every single stoner in the 2000s. So, yeah, he was a good character. Everyone loved him. However, in Action, he goes through a really deep arc. A lot of people hate Geoff in Action, but me personally, like, considering the hindsight, what he's became after Action, it actually set his character up really well. He became this narcissistic psychopath. However, this was stopped because of his friends. Because of his friends guiding him, he sort of like stopped going the same pathway as Chris McLean and Blamley, which I thought was really interesting. And you can see it got translated really well onto World Tour, and especially Redonkulous Race. Speaking of Redonkulous Race, he went back to his island self, and he was way funnier as well, especially with his character dynamic with Brody. I love Geoff so much, and I do wish he got more appreciation from the fans, instead of being lumped with characters like Bridgette and DJ just for his lack of potential and just being an underrated character. I'm putting Geoff in the A tier. I feel like they could have done a little bit more of his character, but from what we did see, he was really, really good. From one A tier character to another A tier character, let's talk about Leshawna. And, okay, I'm gonna be completely honest. Leshawna is a really hard character to pinpoint. I really don't know how to explain her character very well. In Island, she was probably one of the best characters. She was so iconic and kicked a lot of butt, and she was very rootable as well. Leshawna was a definition of a friend everybody needed. She was there for everyone, and she played the perfect support role. In Action, she was a little bit worse, but at the same time, it was still really fun watching her character. Whilst yes, I will admit the subplot of her talking shit about everyone else was honestly quite bad, at least it was sort of entertaining, and I completely understood where she came from with what she was saying, and it did draw a pretty nice conclusion as everyone did forgive her. But then World Tour came along, and yeah, if you were a member of Team Victory, you were pretty much screwed. Like, your character would have been completely assassinated. We saw it with Bridgette, we saw it with DJ, and now we move on to Leshawna, where she backstabs Harold and falls in love with Alejandro, only to be another one of his victims, which is really such a shame. And to make matters worse, this is the last time we saw Leshawna. The last time we saw Leshawna, she wasn't this badass person who defended people. No, she was this backstabber who was a very niche minor character, which really didn't resemble her character at all. To make matters worse, she didn't even appear in All-Stars, which was a season that I felt like she really belonged in. So yeah, World Tour was the last we saw of Leshawna, which is honestly such a shame, because I felt like they could have done a lot more of Leshawna's character. However, from what we did see of Leshawna, aka Island, she was honestly a really, really good character, and I will not hold the other seasons against her. I'm still going to leave Leshawna in A tier just because of how good she was in Island. However, trust me when I say this, she did not go through the worst derailment. Which transitions really well to our next character, Duncan. Okay, that is a bit mean. Duncan did not go through the worst derailment. I think if I had to put my finger on it, it would be Courtney, but Duncan still went through a really bad derailment. So let's talk about Island, and yeah, the appeal is there. He is a tough guy, sure, but at the same time, he was also really sweet, and his relationship with Courtney was also really good. On top of that, he was also a really strong strategist as well. His alliance with Heather, the guy's alliance, yeah, he was pretty much the man with a plan. He was the only other strategist besides Heather that season. And if Duncan were to ever win a season, it really should have been Island, not Action. Speaking of the later seasons, if you were to ever ask someone who was a fan of characters like Duncan, Courtney, and Gwen why that character was their favourite character, they would point to Island and not the seasons afterwards, because they were derailed in those seasons. They will often say, oh, the All-Stars iteration of this character was bad, but this character is still my favourite because of Island and Island alone. Back to Action. And okay, at the beginning of the season, Duncan was quite a strong teammate, being relevant to Gwen and Trent's feud, and had a really strong friendship with Harold and Leshawna or Heather depending on the episode. However, I think the biggest issue he had in Action was consistency. He couldn't hold the same momentum and relevancy near the end, with his role being completely diminished to just a Courtney follower and bully Harold. This next take is really unpopular. However, I think World Tour Duncan was way better than Action Duncan. Even though Action Duncan started out stronger, the longer he lasted, the more irrelevant he was. World Tour Duncan actually had a strategy like he did in Island and was willing to team up with people he didn't like, such as Heather and Alejandro. Unlike in Action where he didn't want to be in an alliance with Harold and just whined about it. Whilst yes, I will acknowledge the love triangle existing, it really didn't affect Duncan's sharp thinking skills and his performances and challenges, unlike his relationship with Courtney in Action. And with Duncan not being affected that much by the love triangle, why was Duncan so derailed? Total Drama All-Stars. The reason why I felt that Total Drama All-Stars Duncan was so bad was because he spent way too long trying to prove that he was this bad guy, tough guy, that he lost sense of his actual character, and he became one complete joke. He didn't have the strategies he once had. He didn't have the friendships he once had. He had nothing. And as a result, Duncan was nothing, and became nothing but a complete mess. Usually I would rank him lower, but because of his legacy in Island, I do have to put him in B at least. Do I have to do this next one? Yes? Well, okay then. People often say that Heather is the best character, but is that really the case? Yeah, it really is the case. Like, she is objectively the best written character. Whilst she isn't my favorite character, I will have to admit she is the best character. And it wasn't just a one-time season either, like Island. No, she was good in every single season, and yes, that does include Total Drama All-Stars. However, let me just get this straight right off the bat. Heather was a terrible villain strategically. She had strategies that made zero sense, and she survived eliminations which she really shouldn't have. Like, plot armor is present in a lot of shows, but that is made apparent with Heather. But outside of her strategies being really bad, she was such a fun villain. She was very fun to hate, and honestly just fulfilled her role really well. I don't really know how to describe it. She was just so good. In Action as well, they set up her redemption arc really well. You can tell she's nicer, but she is not nicer just yet. It was building on really well. And I did love some of her actual friendships with Harold. Well taught as well, not only was she being nicer, but she also made actual friendships with Cody. And she carried Team Amazon so much. Like, Team Amazon was probably the best team, but Heather was really the main event. And plus, her rivalry with Alejandro was really fun to watch. And yeah, being fun to watch is a common theme in Heather's character. Maybe she's poorly written in terms of her strategies, but she is, in fact, fun to watch. And that's the appeal in Heather's character. Even in All-Stars, whilst yes, everyone in that season did get worse, Heather wasn't affected by it too much because she was still fun to watch. I loved her rivalry with characters like Joe and Alejandro. And for the people who say, oh, Heather's strategies are a lot worse this season, no, they weren't. And if you're pointing at the immunity idol, need I remind you that hiding the immunity idol is a strategy that they use all the time in Survivor. So no, it really wasn't a bad strategy at all. And it's this consistency and flow of her character arc that makes Heather such a good character. And yeah, she is probably one of, if not the best characters. S tier for sure, but not above Cody, because Cody is the GOAT. Now we get to Gwen, the third part of the love triangle, and just like the other characters in the love triangle, Gwen did in fact also get derailed. And it wasn't just because of the love triangle either, no no no, in action her relationship with Trent also did ruin her character as well. So yeah, Gwen is the prime example of love being blind, and love basically killing your entire character. Oof. I guess moral of the story is to not fall in love. Firstly, we should talk about Island, and yeah, Gwen was the main character. Besides being the goth girlfriend everybody had a crush on as a kid, Gwen was strong in challenges, went through a lot of conflicts, and developed a lot as a character, overcoming Heather as well. Prime Gwen was honestly one of the best characters ever written because, yeah, she really was good that season. And she was very rootable as well. However, after Island, Gwen goes through a significant downward spiral throughout the later seasons. Action, World Tour, and then All-Stars. In Action, her character got weighed down by Trent, and she was just a genuinely careless and unrootable character at times. In World Tour, it was because of a love triangle that really villainized her. And in All-Stars, they made her seem so pathetic and victimized her. After Island, they really didn't find a good mix of Gwen. In Action, it felt like she didn't care enough. And in World Tour and All-Stars, it felt like she cared way too much. And that ultimately explains the loss in her charm. While yes, a lot of characters did get derailed, Gwen was in fact the biggest offender here, because she was the main character in Island, and it's such a shame to see such a tall figure being thrown down so hard. She had such a great legacy only for it to be diminished by love, and yeah, that was ultimately what hurt Gwen's character the most. Also, something that I really didn't appreciate about Gwen is that instead of being friends with the people who actually want to be friends with her, aka Trent, Cody, Duncan, instead she tries to make friends with Courtney again. Like, wasn't she the person who you wanted to get rid of in World Tour? What? Gwen is such a confusing character sometimes. Despite saying this, despite her being an objectively bad character, I'm gonna hate myself for this so much. I'm giving Gwen an A tier. I know I'm not supposed to give Gwen an A tier, she's a really bad character, but I can't make myself give her a lower score. Now we move on to the other and better Total Drama Island winner, the absolute Giga Chad that is Owen. Owen is a really, really funny character in every season he appears in. And yeah, it's such a shame to see that Owen doesn't get a lot of love. He isn't a part of like the main group like Heather, Gwen, Duncan, and Courtney, because he really does deserve to be in that group of iconic Total Drama characters by the fans. Because Owen is, in fact, a really good, funny, and wholesome character. He is so charming. The only season you could really fault Owen for was Total Drama Action because of a whole cheating subplot. However, it felt like less it was Owen's fault and more to blame on Chris himself, because Owen didn't want to cause drama in front of the cast, and it's not like Owen wanted to compete again. Seeing Owen rejoin did feel a bit off. However, I wouldn't say it 100% ruined Owen's character. Owen still had amazing friendships, and yeah, he was just very rootable and so likable in all the seasons. Owen is just a goofball and he gets an easy S tier. However, would I rank him above or below Heather? Yeah, he's not as good as Heather, sorry. Now that I've ranked the cast of Island, I still need to go through the extra characters in World Tour as well as the hosts. So from now on we'll reach a lightning round where I give a brief summary on my opinions on each of the following characters. So yeah, let's get started. Sierra, a stalker for Cody, but I'm glad that Cody has at least one friend, and she was really funny, in World Tour at least. However, her character does get greatly dropped down in All-Stars, just because they tone all of her negative features up to 11, E tier. Daddy Alejandro, admittedly a Mary Sue and everything went his way as a villain, however I really loved his rivalry with Heather, and I loved that he wasn't actually ruined in All-Stars. If anything, he was slightly improved, so Mr. Coconut tier. But should I put him in Team Amazon? Whatever, yeah, Mr. Coconut tier still. Blaney, as a contestant, only lasted like 2 or 3 episodes, but from what we did see of her, she was very iconic and I wish we got to see more of her. Her friendship with Owen was so cute. B tier. Josh. We saw like nothing from Josh, however, in the Manhunt special, he was actually pretty funny to see, so D tier. Chris and Chef, the hosts of the season. How can I not give them an S tier? They make total drama, total drama, and play off of each other very well. Despite this, however, I am gonna have to hold off on the S tier. After action, Chris became a Jigsaw-ass psychopath, and Chef had less lines than some of the interns, and was about as stale as sliced bread. Thankfully, however, both characters are improving in the reboot and returning to form, so I can't put them lower than A tier, so that's where they belong. Good job, boys. Sorry that the video so rushed, especially at the end. I was really busy, which also does explain why I haven't actually been uploading recently. And yeah, I'm not really going to be uploading after this. At least not in a long time. So yeah, I'm really sorry. I might actually make a potential part 2 down the line talking about Pocktail Island characters and the Revenge of the Island cast, but this is it, I guess. This is the final tier list. 2 things worth of note. 1. I did leave some empty spots out because I do want to cover the other seasons, Revenge of the Island, Pocktail, the reboot, and the Redonkulous Race. And 2. The ranking of each character is not final. I can easily see myself moving these characters up or down depending on the situation. But yeah, that's it. That's every single Total Drama Generation 1 character ranked. Thank you for watching. Probably one of the best characters. She was so iconic and kicked a lot of butt. And she was very rootable as well. Leshawna was the definition of a friend who you...